Turf wars, territory and violence between rival gangs. These are the things that led 16-year-old Joshua Alexander to mistakenly shoot dead an innocent woman, 42-year-old Lianne Gordon, on the 5th of December 2023 in Hackney.
Ivor, a shocking incident, not least because we rarely hear about shootings in the UK.
Yeah, that's right. A shocking incident and something the police have described as a despicable crime. It happened here last night in what is a very residential area of Hackney in East London. It happened at the house at the end of the row, around 50 metres behind me. As you can see, a lot of police still here. Forensics teams are going in and out of the cordon that's been set up, still gathering evidence as their investigation gets underway.
Horrifyingly, at the time of Joshua Alexander's offence against Lianne Gordon, he was actually out on bail for a previous criminal offence, and that's where we'll start. Now viewer, if I've got you hooked on the story so far, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. Now, on the 1st of March 2023, during the afternoon, a boy called Hakeem Malone was on a train and having disembarked at Hackney Central Station, he was attacked by a number of young men. One had a knife who repeatedly stabbed him in the chest, puncturing his heart. Another was in possession of a gun and aimed it at the victim and fired. The victim, who actually didn't cooperate with the police, underwent emergency treatment at the scene. He had received 5 stab wounds to the chest, both his lungs and his heart having been punctured in the process. He also had a gunshot wound to the thigh. But for the skill of those who treated him, he would have died. Now, Alexander didn't inflict any of the violence. His role, rather, was to inform one of his gang members of the presence of the victim in Hackney, because that victim was from a rival gang, a member of the London Fields gang to be exact, and being in Hackney, he was on enemy territory. So in fact, Joshua Alexander had been acting as a scout, and he did so in what the trial judge described when he was sentencing the co-accused as a meticulously arranged hit. Whether it was or whether it wasn't pre-planned and pre-arranged, Alexander had provided information to others in order that the attack could take place, and it did so in the presence of innocent members of the public. For the avoidance of any doubt, the jury found that Alexander, along with his co-accused, had very much intended to kill the victim. Remember, if it hadn't been for the medical intervention that the victim, Hakeem Malone, received on the scene, he would have died. Now, in respect of the attack on Hakeem Malone, Alexander was arrested on the 7th of March 2023 and then released on police bail with conditions not to enter Hackney and to follow a curfew. He knew that he was on bail and that obviously if he were to commit any offences and to ignore his bail conditions, because he wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Hackney, then he would get into even more trouble than he was already bound to get into, but he didn't care. As well as his murder of Lianne Gordon on the 5th of December 2023, he committed other offences on the 2nd of December 2023. So again, an example of somebody who just doesn't care about the consequences, even though they're already being processed through the criminal prosecution system. I'm about to detail the crimes that he committed on the 2nd of December 2023. Joshua Alexander was so embedded in the gang culture and membership of the Pembury gang that he returned to the area of Hackney against his bail conditions on a daily basis. And in particular, he went to 8 Bodney Road, a house which contained a number of flats, one of which, if not more of which, was where Alexander and his associates congregated. Flat 1 at 8 Bodney Road was a hub for the gang, if not its headquarters. And it was from there that Alexander would supply controlled drugs at him and his other gang members. It was also from there that with another, he rode off on his bike, and the same for his accomplice, also on his bike, to number 1 Vine Close on the 2nd of December 2023. One of the two people, Alexander and his accomplice that is, had a machete while the other had a gun. 3 days later, not having achieved their aim, whatever that aim was, obviously to either kill someone or cause that person serious harm, Alexander alone rode off again from flat 1, 8 Bodney Road, and he had a gun on him. And the occasion was, of course, the 5th of December 2023. It was the same gun that either he or his accomplice had had with them on the 2nd of December. So on the 5th of December 2023, Alexander sets off on his bike intending to kill. It was pre-planned and pre-arranged. Not only did Alexander intend to kill, he intended to kill others in a rival gang, and he set off to do so either under his own volition or under orders from his fellow gang members. Two of his victims, Raheem Tang Ming, sorry if I mispronounced that, and Amani Adams Maguire, again sorry if I mispronounced any of those names, haven't cooperated with the police investigation. There's clearly some kind of code. Gangs fight each other, but they are all united in defying any police investigation. Anyway, the third victim, he believed was another rival gang member, and he believed that that person was behind the front door of One Vine Close, but it wasn't that person. Very sadly, it was Lianne Gordon. So, to return to the events of the 2nd of December, because I haven't provided the full details of that yet, Alexander and one of his fellow gang members had left the flat at Bodney Road at 5:30 in the evening. They were both armed. They had both disguised their faces and they were wearing balaclavas. Such was their determination and precision, although their targets were not at Vine Close that day, that they cycled to Hackney Downs Park away from any CCTV cameras and test fired the gun. It wasn't filmed by Alexander but by his accomplice, and Alexander would not name that accomplice in his police investigation or at any other point. So, having satisfied themselves that the gun was fully operational, they made their way to the vicinity of Vine Close. The gun was discharged on 4 occasions. One of those occasions was where a bullet went through a car parked on the driveway of One Vine Close. Alexander was convicted by the jury of affray, possession of a knife and possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life. Fortunately, on that occasion, nobody was injured. It was a typical ride out to an opposing gang's territory, and Alexander was, as I say, disguised and armed with either a gun or a machete. No doubt frustrated that their mission hadn't been accomplished, on the 5th of December 2023, Alexander sent what can only be described as a chilling message in the morning to Lianne Gordon Harris, sorry if I mispronounced any of those names, "Tell me where your friends are." Alexander anticipated that rival gang members or associates would be in Vine Close, and so it was that he set off again on his bike with his face disguised, and this time he was on his own. He wasn't scared, he was determined to kill. It was a premeditated, targeted attack, just like the one of 3 days before that totally failed. He was on a mission that night to execute members of the opposing gang. He arrived at Vine Close just before 6:30 p.m. Amani Adams Maguire and Raheem Sterling were outside number 1 Vine Close. Now, Alexander approached his 2 victims. A witness described that Alexander was about 2 metres away shooting at them. The victims ran behind a parked car on the driveway. Alexander leant over the vehicle and continued to fire the weapon in their direction before chasing them around the vehicle. He then walked to the doorway of number 1 Vine Close. The door was slightly open. Alexander believed that another gang member was behind the door, and he shot downwards through the opening of the door. A witness said there were 2 shots, one of which struck Lianne Gordon in the head and killed her almost instantly. In total, Alexander fired his gun 8 times while he was at the scene before he got back on his bike and fled the scene back to flat 1, 8 Bodney Road. Raheem Tan Ming had been shot in the thigh. Amani Adams Maguire had been shot in the right bottom cheek, but the jury was satisfied that what Alexander had actually intended to do was to kill them both. Alexander was arrested on the 8th of December 2023, and at his home address, police found 12 packages of crack cocaine, which weighed a total of 1.02 grams. Now, at no point between being arrested and being convicted did Joshua Alexander show even the faintest trace of remorse. In fact, he was very happy about what he did. He congratulated himself, which he did in the form of song lyrics. Something tells me this was drill rap, but if I'm wrong, I am happy to accept that. And in those lyrics, he was basically boasting about the murder and the shootings. And keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, Lianne Gordon was an innocent victim. She was a 42-year-old mother of 2. She wasn't his intended target. He shot her by mistake, and yet he was proud to have done that. He was happy. He was boasting about it. Alexander's 29-year prison sentence, a life sentence, is more like a 28-year sentence because the 357 days that Alexander spent on remand in custody will be deducted from that sentence. And the sentence covers the following criminal offences committed by Alexander: affray, possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life, possession of a bladed article, 2 counts of attempted murder, possession of cocaine with intent to supply, and of course murder. So Alexander was 17 when he was sentenced, meaning, as you can see, that he'll be at least 45 before he gets out of prison. He may or may not get parole when he applies for it. If he does get it, he'll be subject to strict rules and conditions. And those rules and conditions are known as a licence. If he breaches any of the conditions of his licence, he'll be sent back to prison for any length of time. And he will have that hanging over him for the rest of his life. And that is what makes a life sentence a life sentence. Honestly, poor Lianne Gordon, she was a completely innocent victim. She was a mother of 2. They'd all just come back from holiday to Jamaica. They had no idea what was in wait for them. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.